Hi, everyone. My name is Holly. I'm in the psych department, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about how I revised an assignment that I've been using for a while in one of my developmental psychology courses. Just some background, this is a discussion post assignment that I used to do on Blackboard and now is done on Brightspace for an asynchronous lifespan developmental course. So in the original assignment, I have students review recent literature, and I have them look at YouTube videos demonstrating recent experiments in childhood cognitive developmental psychology. And then they have to analyze if the findings of that recent paper that I assigned them and the video demonstration aligns or supports or does not support popular developmental theory. Specifically for this assignment, it's Piaget's childhood cognitive developmental theory. And then they have to provide a critical analysis of Piaget's theory using what they learned in the literature and the video and considering the indicators of a good theory that we discuss in class. So when I did this assignment, the first few years, I really enjoyed reading the responses. I felt like students were really thinking critically about Piaget's theory. They were analyzing different aspects of the theory. Some students supported the theory more. Others thought that the new evidence refuted the theory and that revisions need to be made. And so it was really interesting to me to see their thought process through this assignment. But as AI became more openly available to students, I noticed their responses started to all be basically exactly the same. And then it became very monotonous to read through, and I feel like I was losing a little bit of the critical thinking analysis in the assignment that I wanted students to be doing to begin with. So I thought, how can I incorporate AI in a way where they're using it more like a tool or a way to think more critically? So the way I revised the assignment is I still have them look at recent research, and I still have them look at YouTube videos demonstrating how some of these experiments are run. So they're still getting the background there. But then based on reading the research, looking at the YouTube videos, and thinking about Piaget's theory, they have to come up with 2 questions they would ask Piaget if they could interview him. And then, of course, they can't interview Piaget, right? So I have them, as a next step, use a AI tool. I suggest ChatGPT, but they can use any tool they want. I suggest a prompt to give them to allow AI to become a chatbot and act as though the chatbot is Jean Piaget, the developmental theorist, and they ask the chatbot their questions, and they could kind of go back and forth in dialogue as often as they want, as many times as they want, kind of like an actual interview, but they have to at least ask the 2 questions that they came up with on their own. And then as a final step, I have them analyze the chatbot responses for accuracy using reliable sources. And they have to record a video of themselves kind of as though they're giving the interview and discussing like how the chatbot responded and their analysis of it. So I really liked the responses that students submitted when I revised the assignment. I started to see more of that critical thought come back. Their responses were different. They weren't all the same. And they were kind of interesting because you can see, here's an example of student responses. It became more like a dialogue rather than like a correct answer, like students think that you're looking for in some of these assignments. So here's a student response. The student asked about one of Piaget's specific tasks. In your 3 mountain task, young children often answered from their own viewpoint, which you interpreted as egocentric. Do you think this was too complex? How would you modify it for a 2 to 3-year-old? The chatbot gave some answer, and then the student kind of pushed back a little bit. So they're like, how exactly would you do that? Can you give me an example of a task? So you could see the students starting to use the chatbot as like a tool to think through like, okay, what can new research look like, right? What about research with younger kids compared to the age group that Piaget may be typically used for this task? And then the student pushed back even further and said, this doesn't sound like an original idea. Can you come up with a totally new task that tests the same outcome? So really interesting to me to see how the student is kind of following their own interest in this area and trying to learn more based on the chatbot's knowledge. Here's another student response that I appreciated. This student was really into sports. And so they kind of framed all of their questions in relation to sports, which I thought was really interesting and unique. So in sports, athletes often understand a player strategy before they can physically execute it at a high level. Do you think infant cognition might work the same, where understanding develops before motor ability, and how would this idea change how you test object permanence? So really interesting way that students can like spin their own interest in asking questions to these chatbots. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then later they asked the chatbot what they thought about like LeBron James and other not really relevant things, but you could see they were having fun with using the tool. So I felt like it was an advantage to incorporate AI for this specific assignment. I feel like students started to use AI as an interactive learning tool. So more like a dialogue rather than just, okay, ask a question and I get an answer and it's the right answer, right? The responses were more personalized and different from each other, which is what I'm looking for in these kind of assignments where I want students to think critically on their own through this theory and analysis of theory. I like the component of fact-checking, so asking students to verify claims that the chatbot made and use reliable sources. Although I will say, this is where I think the assignment prompt needs revision, because a lot of students just wrote, yeah, the chatbot did a really good job. And I wanted more there. So I am thinking about revising that in the future. And I liked also the component in the assignment where they have to record themselves as though they are actually doing an interview, because at least then I feel like they get some practice as though they were conducting an interview, right? And then they upload the video. So like I mentioned, if I'm going to revise this assignment in the future, I would like to change the prompt where they have to analyze the theory a bit more. And I asked AI to help me with this. I gave AI the prompt, can you offer feedback on how I could encourage students to analyze their use of AI and accuracy of AI in this assignment? And this is the suggestion it gave me, and I'm gonna possibly incorporate this in some way in the assignment next semester, because I think it was a pretty good suggestion. So AI is also a really good tool to help you revise your own assignments. And that was it for this discussion post. Thank you.